You can land every Akali ability and still completely lose the trade. Most players spend all their time learning combos, but Akali's real difficulty is knowing how to connect everything properly. Cast Q too close and your passive becomes harder to land. Rush through your abilities and you lose a huge amount of damage. Use your ultimate too early and you waste the strongest part of your combo. A good Akali wins through spacing, timing, and knowing exactly when to commit or disappear. In this guide, I'll teach you her unique trading pattern, essential combos, Shroud outplays, and every mechanic you need to play her properly at every stage of the game. Let's get into it. Let's quickly lock in what Akali brings to the table. Akali uses explosive magic damage to dive into fights and eliminate vulnerable carries before they can respond. Her E and her ultimate give her multiple dashes, allowing her to chase targets, reposition during fights, or escape dangerous situations. Between her Shroud, movement, and ability to delay her attacks, Akali can confuse enemies, waste their abilities, and survive fights she should seemingly lose. Akali doesn't use mana, allowing her to keep trading whenever her abilities return, although she still needs to manage her limited energy carefully. Her mobility, strong dueling, and ability to escape collapses make Akali a dangerous champion to pressure side lanes with. But that power comes with real risks, so let's break down her weaknesses. Akali can be killed extremely quickly if she gets caught outside her Shroud or locked down before she can reposition. Outside of her slow from Q, Akali has no reliable crowd control to set up kills or provide utility for her team. Proper passive spacing, energy management, Shroud movement, and ability sequencing all take considerable time to master. Long-range champions can poke Akali, control the wave, and pressure her before she gets close enough to fight back. When Akali falls behind, she may no longer have enough damage to threaten carries, and because she offers very little team utility, she can quickly become irrelevant. Those are Akali's biggest strengths and weaknesses overall. Akali's abilities start the damage. Her passive is what makes it hurt. Damaging a champion with an ability creates a ring around them. Step outside it, and your next attack gains bonus range and damage, as well as a unique movement speed effect. Some abilities make this empowered attack incredibly easy to land. Others require much more careful spacing. Here's how the movement speed actually works. Before leaving the ring, Akali only gains movement speed away from the ring. Once she crosses the edge, it switches, and she only gains movement speed back towards the enemy champion. The extra range and movement speed helps Akali reach ranged champions and completely outspace melee champions. You can use the movement speed defensively to disengage. Landing Akali's Q is the easy part. What you do after decides whether you win the trade. Q deals AoE damage, and enemies hit by the tip are slowed. A lot of new players cast Q way too close. You miss the slow, have farther to walk to activate your passive, and by the time you turn back, the enemy is already gone. Instead, aim for the tip of the Q, instantly step backwards out of the ring, then turn forward for the empowered attack. This spacing is one of the most important Akali mechanics to master, especially early game. Q's low cooldown and AoE also make it Akali's main wave clear tool, so aim to hit as many minions as possible. Whenever enemies are grouped together, look for opportunities to hit multiple targets with one Q. This ability deals no damage, yet it might be the most crucial part of Akali's entire kit. Akali throws down a smoke shroud, restoring energy and briefly gaining movement speed. While inside, she becomes invisible and cannot be targeted by enemy attacks or targeted abilities. Attacking or using an ability briefly reveals Akali before she disappears back into the smoke. Use W during longer trades to restore energy and buy time for your abilities to come back. The movement speed also helps you close gaps, reposition, or pressure enemies away from the wave. During ganks, place the shroud near a wall or brush and use the invisibility to hide which direction you escape. Akali's E may look simple, but it has one of the most broken mechanics in the game. Akali throws a shuriken while flipping backwards, damaging and marking the first enemy hit. Recast E to dash back to the marked target, dealing much more damage. The initial flip can cross walls and naturally moves Akali outside her passive ring, making E one of the easiest ways to activate an empowered attack. E can even mark your shroud, letting you trade or chase before dashing back to safety. Now here's where it gets ridiculous. E has unlimited follow range. If your target teleports or travels across the map, Akali can reactivate E and follow them all the way. The shuriken also reveals marked enemies, so throw it into brushes or over walls to check for hidden targets. Use the backflip to dodge projectiles or escape incoming abilities. Most players know what Akali's ultimate does, they just use it at the wrong time. Akali first dashes through a targeted enemy champion, dealing damage and unlocking a second dash after a short delay. R2 can be aimed in any direction and deals more damage based on the enemy's missing health, making it strongest as the final part of your combo. Before using R2, look for any remaining Qs, empowered auto attacks or other damage. Then use R2 to finish the kill. If you already have enough damage to finish the enemy, save R2 to dash out of danger and towards safety. Both casts can activate Akali's passive, giving you up to 2 empowered attacks for even more damage. And you can use R1 on nearby frontline champion as a stepping stone to reach the backline. Max Q first because it's Akali's main tool for wave clear and harass. Leveling Q doesn't lower its cooldown, but it does reduce the energy cost, letting you use it more consistently throughout fights. Max E second because each rank increases its damage and lowers its cooldown. Then Max W last, since most of its value comes from the utility it already provides at rank 1. And level your ultimate whenever possible. You can win your entire lane at level 1 if you master this Akali trading pattern. Land Q, step outside the passive ring, and move back for the empowered auto. After that, use another Q or attack to proc electrocute. This backwards and forwards movement is the foundation of Akali's entire kit and her longer combos. If Akali lands E, you're about to lose a massive chunk of health. The hardest part is landing the first E. Once it connects, follow the target, use your empowered auto, then finish with Q. From there, you can Shroud to avoid the retaliation and continue the trade if they stay in range. If the enemy refuses to walk near Akali, you can still poke them safely with this trick. Place Shroud, move through it for the movement speed, then throw E back into the Shroud to dash towards the enemy. Use Q, take the passive auto if it's safe, then reactivate E to return to your Shroud. This won't deal massive damage, but it gives Akali a safe way to slowly poke enemies who are playing far back. You don't always need Shroud either. You can mark a minion with E, dash forward for Q, then return to the minion before the enemy can punish you. Give Akali enough room to use this combo, and most squishies are already dead. Start with R1, then cast E1 mid-dash to make the mark much more reliable, and follow them with E2. Use your passive auto, Q, then another passive auto before finishing with R2. Save R2 until the target is low. Learning this Akali finisher will instantly get you more kills. Land Q, step outside the passive ring, then flash in with the empowered auto. Immediately follow with Q and ignite. Enemies often think they're safe and don't expect this much damage. The full burst procs electrocute and ignite finishes them off. Akali's combos are flexible, not fixed sequences. Weave passive autos between abilities when it's safe, but don't force them if the enemy can escape or punish you. The buttons are simple, the real skill is finding the right opening, judging your spacing, and adapting to how the enemy reacts. Electrocute is Akali's default rune, and you'll take it in almost every mid-lane game. It gives her extra burst after hitting an enemy with 3 separate attacks or abilities, which fits perfectly with her Qs, passive autos, and E. Take sudden impact next. Akali can activate it easily through her E, Shroud, and ultimate, giving her extra damage whenever she enters a fight. If you're still learning Akali or struggling against heavy poke, Taste of Blood is a safer alternative that gives you additional sustain in lane. For the next row, Grizzly Mementos is a reliable default, although Sixth Sense and Deep Ward are both completely viable. Finish the domination tree with Ultimate Hunter. Akali relies heavily on her ultimate to reach targets, escape danger, and create plays, so lowering its cooldown gives you far more opportunities throughout the game. For your secondary tree, take Resolve. Second Wind is best against champions who repeatedly poke you with individual attacks or abilities because it restores some of the health you lose afterward. Against champions who trade through short combos or sudden bursts, take Bone Plating instead. Then take Overgrowth for a consistent bonus damage as the game continues. For your shards, take 2 Adaptive Force and Scaling Health. Conqueror is a much more situational option, mainly against tank-heavy teams where fights will last longer. Akali can stack it through her abilities and passive autos, increasing her damage throughout an extended fight. Pair it with Presence of Mind for additional energy regeneration, Legend Haste for lower cooldowns, and Cut Down to deal more damage against high health targets. You can keep Second Wind or Bone Plating with Overgrowth as your secondary runes. Akali has two reliable starting items. Doran's Ring is best in lanes where you're confident you can trade and control the wave, particularly against melee champions. It gives you more damage and everything you need to play aggressively. Against ranged champions or difficult poke lanes, take Doran's Shield instead. The additional health and sustain make it much safer while you focus on surviving the lane and reaching your first major power spike. The first core item is Hextech Gunblade, and you'll build it in almost every game. It gives Akali the damage and sustain she needs, while its active makes her engages much easier. Gunblade's active has enough range to slow enemies before they enter your ultimate range. This lets you slow them first, move closer, and then comfortably begin your combo. You can use it to land your E more reliably, add extra burst, or finish the enemy who is escaping. For boots, Sorcerer's Shoes are your default. Their magic penetration gives Akali the strongest immediate damage spike and helps her burst squishy targets. Against teams with dangerous crowd control or heavy magic damage, take Mercury Treads instead. Against heavy physical teams, plated steel caps can greatly reduce the damage you take. Gluttonous Greaves are also a viable budget option when you cannot afford Sorcerer's Shoes. They deal less damage, but the lower price and additional sustain can still make them very useful. After Gunblade and boots, build Shadow Flame. This completes Akali's main core and gives her a large increase in ability power and burst. From here, your build depends on what the game requires. Rabadon's Death Cap gives you the biggest raw damage increase and is especially strong when you're already ahead. Zhonya's Hourglass is your main defensive option. Its active lets you dive into fights, avoid key abilities, and stall for cooldowns, and give your team time to follow up. When enemies begin building magic resistance, build Void Staff so your damage can continue getting through. Banshee's Veil is another defensive option against teams with dangerous magic damage or a key crowd control ability that could stop your engage. Storm Surge is a cheaper offensive option against cheaper squishy teams when you want additional movement speed and burst. If you're snowballing with several Dark Seal stacks, Magi Soul Stealer can turn your lead into an enormous amount of ability power. Akali's Mobility and Shroud give her more opportunities than most champions to protect those stacks, but only upgrade if you're confident you can avoid dying. Lichbane works well when you expect to use several passive autos during fights. It also significantly improves your damage against towers, making it useful when you plan to spend most time side laning and split pushing. Hextech Rocket Belt is a very situational option when reaching enemy carries is your biggest problem. And in some games you can build it over Gunblade. But you can still build them both at the same time. Take Flash and Ignite in almost every game. Flash gives Akali even more playmaking potential. You can use it to reach an enemy, finish a kill, reposition during a fight, or escape when your other mobility is unavailable. Ignite gives you the early kill pressure Akali needs to begin snowballing. It adds extra damage, reduces healing, and continues revealing the target if they try to escape into Fog of War. Teleport is the safer alternative. Take it when you expect a difficult lane, want more forgiving recalls, or need to match side laning pressure later in the game. However, you will sacrifice a large amount of early kill pressure, so Ignite should remain your default. Akali's early game is about pushing the wave while staying healthy enough to pressure the enemy. Use Q on minions and try to hit the enemy at the same time whenever they stand close to the wave. This forces them to choose between trading with you or keeping up with the push. Against ranged champions, avoid unnecessary poke and let Doran's Shield recover some of the damage that gets through. At level 2 you usually take Shroud. It gives you a safer way to move forward, land Q, and continue trading with the extra energy. Entering Shroud also drops minion aggro, stopping the wave from continuing to attack you during the trade. Keep pushing, pressure enemies away from the wave, and punish them when they waste an important ability or step too far forward. You don't need to force an all-in immediately. Build the advantage through the wave, and take the trade when the opening is actually there. Once Akali reaches level 6, her kill pressure and ability to affect the map increases significantly, especially once you also have Hextech Alternator. Look for all-ins when the enemy is low, has used an important defensive ability, or moves too far forward away from safety. You can also push the wave and move towards fights in the river or jungle. Akali is extremely dangerous in smaller skirmishes where enemies have fewer teammates nearby to protect them and more space for her to chase. However, don't roam just because your ultimate is available. Push the wave first, check whether the fight is actually winnable, and stay in lane if there is nothing reliable to gain. Even simply appearing off the map is an effective Akali strategy. If no good opportunities appear, keep farming and wait for the enemy to make a mistake. The mid game is where Akali is at her strongest. Once you complete Gunblade, and especially after Shadow Flame, you can quickly burst most squishy targets, and even outplay multiple enemies in the right situation. Look for small skirmishes, catch isolated enemies, and punish anyone who moves around the map alone. Swap to Sweeper and pick up a control ward when useful. Clearing vision forces enemies to face check, creating more opportunities to catch and burst priority targets. One of Akali's strongest options is side laning. This keeps your farm high, creates pressure across the map, and gives you more opportunities to find 1v1s or take towers. Enemies may send multiple players to stop you, but Akali has enough mobility and safety to stall, outplay them, or escape before they can finish the kill. In teamfights, your main goal is usually to threaten and eliminate enemy carries. Look for flanks from the side or behind, but Akali is flexible enough to fight from the front when a clear opening appears. Shroud creates constant pressure around squishy champions. While they cannot see or target you, they have to respect the possibility that you could attack at any moment, which can force them away from the fight. Be patient around dangerous crowd control and area damage. Once the abilities that can lock you down have been used, you have much more freedom to move through the fight and attack the backline. Even if you die afterwards, taking out 1 or 2 important carries can be enough to win the fight for your team. Akali can still create the same pressure late game, but mistakes become much more punishing. Enemies will usually stay grouped, build more defensive items, and become harder to catch or burst immediately. Continue using side lanes to create pressure, but watch the map carefully and avoid pushing too far without knowing where the enemy is. In teamfights, wait for a clear opening rather than forcing your way in. Akali is still extremely dangerous, but one crowd control ability or failed engage can decide the entire game. Every second you waste in base costs you gold, so make sure you learn this Akali trick. Walk outside the shop, play Shroud, then mark it with E. Wait until you have enough gold, buy your item, then reactivate E to instantly launch yourself back towards lane. And the same trick works with tower plates. When you're pushed up, place Shroud behind you, mark it with E, take the plate, then reactivate E and start recalling immediately. You get the tower gold without sacrificing as much tempo. You can also use E then Shroud to return to lane slightly faster. Just be careful as Shroud has a long cooldown, so it may still be unavailable when you reach lane. Forcing every passive auto will get you killed on Akali. Sure, it does heaps of damage, but collecting it takes time. Take the empowered auto when you can weave it in safely, but if the enemy can escape, use crowd control or punish you, skip it and continue the fight. Good Akali players don't collect every passive. Blue buff makes Akali feel completely broken. Most players think blue buff is only for mana champions. Wrong. The extra energy regeneration lets you spam Q far more often before running out. So whenever shared blue buff is available, pick it up. If you want to outplay people inside Shroud, you need to know exactly what they can see. Sweepers, they show a delayed outline, so keep moving. AoE damage, it still hits you, and briefly reveals your silhouette. Control wards, useless, they don't reveal Akali. True Sight and enemy towers fully reveal you, so Shroud won't protect you from those. And that empty looking center? There's no visible smoke, you're still visible there. Enemies will never see this coming. When you're 1 minion away from level 6, drop Shroud before it dies. The second you level up, unlock your ultimate and R1 straight out of the smoke. To them, you were just level 5. Then Akali suddenly launches at them from a safe range they thought was safe. If they disrespect your level up, punish them with a free kill. Invisible champions have no champion against Akali's E. If you know they're about to disappear, mark them first, then hold E2. The mark grants true vision, so you can track them through invisibility and choose exactly when to follow. And against clones, mark the real champion before they split. Once the copies appear, you'll already know which one to kill. Akali's E can follow enemies anywhere. Teleport, Twisted Fate, Galio, Rise, even recalls. If they travel while marked, E2 can chase them across the map. But check the destination first. Following someone into the enemy team or straight into their fountain turns an insane play into an instant death. Walls won't save enemies from Akali. If you have vision, R1 can target them through terrain and launch you straight over the wall. A ward, control ward, or even early ignite can keep them visible long enough to engage. And thin walls work both ways. Position near an enemy, cast R1, and Akali's dash can carry her through the wall to engage or escape. Stop wasting flash on fake Akali mechanics. Q flash works, letting Q finish from your new position. But E1 flash does not redirect the shuriken. It only changes or cancels the backflip, which can ruin the free passive setup E normally gives you. You can also flash during E2 or your ultimate to cancel the dash. But unless you're escaping danger or making a deliberate advance play, you're probably just wasting flash. Stop diving without an exit. Before a tower dive, place Shroud somewhere safe and mark it with E. Go in, finish the kill, then use E2 to snap back out. You can do the same thing with a healthy minion. Mark it before the dive, commit, then return to it once the kill is secured. And this works far beyond towers. Mark a minion, jungle camp, or Shroud before entering danger, burst the squishy, then escape with E2 before the enemy team can punish you. Stop treating Akali's E2 like a one-way ticket. While traveling, use R1 on another enemy to redirect onto them, or use R2 to break away in any direction. You lose the E2 damage, but escaping danger, finishing someone else, or landing on a squishy target can be far more valuable. You can also cast Shroud, Ignite, or Gunblade while flying past enemies. And if someone is barely out of range, cast E backwards to flip towards them, then instantly R1. It turns two separate dashes into one brutal gap close. Learning Akali's E wall hops will secure kills and save your life. For thinner walls, throw E away from the wall and use the backflip to launch yourself across. But thicker walls are too wide for the flip. Instead, throw the shuriken over the wall and mark a champion or jungle monster. Then use E2 to fly straight across. Thin wall, use the flip. Thick wall, find a target. Learn these Shroud tricks and enemies will waste everything trying to catch you. Place Shroud between two brushes and keep switching between them. If they guess one, move through the other. Around alcoves, river walls, and jungle paths, this gives Akali endless room to stall, waste cooldowns, and escape. You can also cast E on Shroud before it fully appears, letting you mark it instantly. And even after the Shroud disappears, the E mark remains for a moment. So when enemies think your escape route is gone, press E2 and vanish back to safety. No objective is safe when Akali is nearby. Place Shroud outside the Baron and Dragon Pit, mark it with E, then dash over the wall to check what's happening. You can scout safely, hunt low health enemies, or even attempt a steal. Then use E2 to snap back to Shroud before they can punish you. And Shroud is also perfect for checking brushes. Connect the edge of your Shroud to the brush, then walk inside the brush while staying in the smoke. You'll reveal every enemy hiding inside while they still can't see you. Landing E is everything on Akali, so stop throwing it raw. Slow them with a tip of Q, use Shroud to get close, or hit Gunblade first to make them easier to target. And master your R1 E1 combo. Cast E while you dash through them. The closer you get, the harder E becomes to miss. And remember, E still hits enemies slightly behind Akali, so when someone is right on top of you, that extra hitbox makes the mark far more reliable. Stop pressing E2 the second it becomes available. If the marked enemy is still close, take your passive auto and keep fighting. You can either switch onto another target while keeping E2 ready. Then when the marked target enemy dashes, flashes, or tries to escape, follow them instantly. E2 is not just damage, sometimes the threat of following is more valuable than using it immediately. Before we cover matchup tiers, remember that matchups can be slightly subjective depending on your experience against each champion. Akali's early game is heavily influenced by spacing, energy management, and how effectively you use Shroud to create pressure without taking unnecessary damage. She can begin trading from level 1 with Q and her passive, but her kill pressure becomes much stronger once she unlocks her full kit and eventually reaches level 6. These ratings assume both players are equally skilled and focus on how easily the enemy's kit can pressure Akali, reveal or punish her inside her Shroud, survive her damage, or prevent her from breaching them. Akali can reliably pressure once she gets access to them. They may be squishy, lack reliable protection, or struggle to fight back once Akali moves into range and begins using Shroud. Use Q to pressure them around the wave and punish them whenever they waste an important ability or move too far forward. Once you reach level 6, many of these champions become extremely vulnerable to an all-in. If they stay far back and refuse to interact, use that control to push the wave, move first, and create pressure elsewhere. Medium matchups are more skill-based and usually come down to spacing, cooldowns, and execution. These champions may have enough mobility, crowd control, durability, or damage to punish Akali if she approaches carelessly. Instead of immediately forcing an engage, look to bait their most important defensive ability first. Use Shroud to control trades, recover energy, and make it harder for them to retaliate. One clean E or well-timed all-in can give you control of the lane, but missing your engage or wasting Shroud can leave you exposed. Hard matchups give Akali very little room for error. These champions may outrange her, reveal her inside Shroud, survive her burst, deny her mobility, or reliably punish her whenever she moves forward. Avoid repeatedly forcing trades that their kit naturally counters. Keep the wave closer to your tower when possible, preserve your health, and use Q to secure farm without taking unnecessary damage. And see builds for any defensive options. Your best opportunities usually come when they waste an important cooldown, overextend, or become vulnerable to a gank. If the lane gives you no realistic opening, focus on staying even, reaching your item spikes, and finding better fights outside the lane. These tiers represent how naturally each champion's kit performs against Akali. They don't guarantee who wins. Akali has enough mobility, damage, and outplay potential to win almost any matchup, but harder lanes require much better patience, spacing, and execution. And if you want more detailed help against individual champions, check out my complete mid lane matchup guide, where I break down how to lane against every major mid lane matchup. Akali top is best when you want more space to take extended trades, pressure melee champions, and create side lane threat. Most of this guide still applies, but top lane gives Akali a much longer lane to chase enemies and more opportunities to use your Q and passive autos without immediately reaching their tower. Against melee champions, use your range advantage to poke with Q, take the passive auto when it's safe, using Shroud anytime to avoid their retaliation. Akali is especially strong against champions who rely on predictable abilities or auto attacks because Shroud lets her stall, recover energy, and choose when the trade continues. However, you need to respect durable bruisers who can survive your burst and punish you once Shroud ends. Picking Akali top may leave your team without a front line, so be aware of your team composition. She works best when your jungler, mid laner, or support has already picked a tank, or when your team needs more AP. For runes, Electrocute is still reliable against squishier champions and matchups where you want short trades. Take Conqueror against tanks and bruisers, where you'll have more time to stack it through repeated Qs and passive autos. You can follow the same item build covered earlier. For summoner spells, Flash and Ignite are usually the best choice. Ignite gives you stronger kill pressure, and completing the top lane quest will still give you teleport later. Akali top is strongest when she can isolate enemies, create pressure in a side lane, and force multiple players to respond to her. Akali will probably feel awkward before she feels smooth. Her spacing, energy, passive timing, and ability sequencing all demand a different rhythm from most champions. You'll overcommit, miss empowered auto attacks, and use Shroud or R2 at the wrong moment. That's part of learning her. With enough games, you'll start recognizing your limits, finding cleaner openings, and knowing exactly how much damage you have. Eventually, the movement slows down in your head, and the decisions become automatic, and Akali starts feeling natural. If this guide helped, consider subscribing for more champion guides like this. I'm Zeus, and I'll see you in the next one.